I moved to this small town just a few weeks ago. I wanted peace after the chaos of city life. I thought an old Victorian house would be cozy. I was wrong. I'm 32 and used to being home alone, but this place felt different. The first night, everything was quiet as I worked on my projects. The clicking of my keyboard was the only sound. Then I heard a soft tapping on the window. I thought maybe it was just a branch. I told myself not to worry. After a while, I got up to check outside, but there was only darkness. Nothing was there. The next day, I noticed shadows out of the corner of my eye. I felt a shiver run down my spine, but I laughed it off. I kept working late into the night, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread. Then it happened. I heard soft giggles. I froze in my chair. I knew I was alone. I didn't want to move, but the giggles were eerie, and they echoed in my mind. Days went by, and I began to feel like I was losing my grip. Things would be out of place. A cup I swore I put on the table would be on the kitchen counter. I was sure I hadn't moved it. I checked and checked again, but it never made sense. One late night, I was at my desk again, working with just a dim lamp on. I heard something down the hall. Was it footsteps? I held my breath, my heart racing. Was I imagining it? I got up slowly, my legs felt heavy as I walked to the hallway. I could barely see. It felt like the darkness was closing in on me. When I reached the end, I stood still, staring into the blackness. I felt cold. I thought I heard my name whispered softly. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. I wanted to turn, to run, but I couldn't move. Just emptiness surrounded me. I decided to ignore it all. I wanted to believe it was all in my head. But that night, it escalated. I decided to calm my nerves with a cup of tea. As I walked to the kitchen, I heard the giggles again. This time they were closer. I felt panic rise in me. I paused, listening, but silence drowned out my thoughts. Standing there, I felt an urge to scream. I wanted to call someone, but I reminded myself that I was being silly. I was just tired. But then I saw a shadow move past me. I jolted and dropped my cup. It shattered on the floor, and I jumped back. I swore I could make out a figure, just for a moment. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I rushed to my room, locking the door behind me. I lay in bed, clutching the sheets, listening to the house creak. I could almost hear them whispering. The giggles became louder. I shivered and hugged my knees. Then, just as I was about to drift off, a soft giggle echoed from right outside my door. I clenched my eyes tight, wishing it would stop. I don't know how I'll get through this. I just want to be left alone. I felt a growing fear that whatever is in this house doesn't want me here at all. The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. I had barely slept, and the haunting giggles still echoed in my mind. I got up reluctantly, deciding I needed a distraction. I made coffee and opened my laptop, promising myself to focus on work. At least the sunlight poured through the kitchen window. For a brief moment, it helped push the shadows out of my mind. I sat down at my desk, starting to feel a little better. Then, without warning, I heard a loud thump from the basement. My fingers froze over the keyboard. I was sure I was the only one in the house. A part of me wanted to ignore it. Maybe it was just another old house noise, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was down there. I took a deep breath and stood up, deciding it was time to face whatever was going on. I crept toward the basement door, my heart thumping loudly in my chest. It swung outward, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. As I stepped down, I felt the air grow colder. I grabbed my phone for light, the beam barely piercing the thick shadows. The basement was cramped and cluttered, filled with old furniture and forgotten boxes that had seen better days. I scanned the room, not knowing what I was looking for. Then I noticed something unusual. A small, dusty mirror leaned against the wall. It looked out of place, and it caught the light from my phone, reflecting it eerily. I approached it, feeling a mix of curiosity and dread. When I looked at my reflection, I half expected something to jump out at me. Instead, I saw my own pale face staring back. But then something happened. I noticed a faint movement behind me in the mirror. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. Just the clutter, the darkness, and my thudding heart. I took a step back, unsure whether to run or stay. That's when I noticed the mirror again. It seemed like the surface shimmered, almost alive. With a wave of panic, I turned to leave, but something pulled at my sleeve. I yanked my arm away and dashed up the stairs, heart racing. I slammed the basement door shut behind me, leaning against it for support. I needed answers. I couldn't keep living like this. I rushed back to my laptop with shaky hands, Googling everything I could think of, about the house, the town, and even the stories that might be hidden in the walls. I needed to know what was going on, but I was also terrified of what I might find. And then, while I scrolled through a site about local legends, I found it. A story about the original owners of the house. Rumors of tragic events that took place within these walls flooded my thoughts. I read about the children who had once lived here. Their laughter echoed through time, but it did not bring comfort. Suddenly, my phone buzzed loudly, cutting through the silence. I jumped. It was a notification from a social media app one rarely used. I opened it and froze. There was a video posted of a family standing in front of what looked like my house. And in the background, I swear I could see a figure in the window. I sat back and gasped. Who was it? Why were they there? I had to find out more, but I was already feeling that looming presence behind me. The giggles were back. I gripped my phone tighter, praying I wouldn't have to face what was creeping ever closer. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching me. The giggles echoed in my ears, blending into the sound of my thumping heart. I needed to get out of that house, but first, I had to figure out the significance of what I had just seen. The video tormented me. Who were those people, and what were they doing in front of my home? I grabbed my jacket and headed to the front door, the sunlight outside a stark contrast to the dark energy inside. Just as I reached for the handle, a crash rang out from the basement. My stomach dropped. It was impossible to ignore it now. I hesitated, torn between fleeing and uncovering the truth. Curiosity pulled me back. Against my better judgment, I opened the basement door again. I crept down the staircase, feeling the cold air wrap around me like a shroud. The thumping had stopped, replaced by a suffocating silence that made my skin crawl. I approached the mirror, still leaning against the wall. My heart raced as I turned the light back on. The mirror seemed unchanged, but I could have sworn it looked different, darker, more menacing. I took a deep breath and stepped closer. That's when I saw it. A small, dark figure in the corner of the mirror, just outside the glow of my phone's light. It was the faint outline of a girl, her hair long and tangled. She looked like she was reaching for something. My breath caught. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer came except for the low humming of laughter, barely audible, like a memory drifting through time. I backed away slowly, my hands trembling. I felt an overwhelming urge to close my eyes, to shut myself off from what was happening, but I fought it. I needed to stay strong. Then, a rush of wind blew past me, slamming the basement door shut. I jumped, spinning to face it. The laughter grew louder, tangled with echoes of sorrow, snaking around me. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged. My heart raced as I slammed my shoulder against the door. It held firm. I stumbled backward, my eyes darting back to the mirror. The girl was closer now, her hand knocked against the glass, as if begging to come through. "Leave me alone," I shouted, voice ringing out in the emptiness. The girl stared at me with hollow eyes, and the laughter sharpened into a shriek that pierced the air. Suddenly, the mirror cracked. A jagged line appeared, spiderwebbing across the dark surface. I watched in horror as the crack spread, mist swirling in the fissures like smoke. I stumbled back, the fear flooding through me. I had to escape. I lunged for the door again, throwing my weight against it, and finally, it swung open with a loud creak. I bolted up the stairs, the laughter fading behind me, but not before I heard it whisper my name. As I reached the top, I slammed the door shut, breathing hard. There had to be some connection between the video, the girl, and the ominous laughter. But I didn't have time to think. I could feel the energy in the house shift, heavy and cold. Something was following me. I looked back toward the basement, where shadows danced in the corner of my vision. This wasn't over. I knew now that I had to dig deeper into the history of the house and those who once lived here. But as I turned away, I swore I heard the soft giggles again, laughter creeping just out of reach. And then, right before I could step into the light, everything went dark. I woke up in my bedroom, disoriented. The sun streamed through the window, bright and blinding, the warmth a stark contrast to the tormenting cold of the basement. I sat up, confusion clouding my thoughts. Had it all been a terrifying dream? I touched my face, hoping to shake off the remnants of fear that clung to my mind. But the memories rushed back sharp and vivid. The mirror, the girl, the laughter. It felt too real to dismiss. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. The first step was to figure out what the video meant. I grabbed my laptop, hoping to find any clues hidden online. As I searched, my fingers moved automatically across the keyboard. I was desperate for anything related to paranormal activity in my neighborhood. I spent hours reading articles, moving from one link to another. Most stories were bland. But then I found an old message board filled with eerie accounts from people living in homes like mine, places filled with shadows and whispers. Then, one post caught my eye. A user had shared a similar experience involving a girl in a mirror. They described how the girl sought help, only to lead them to a dark secret buried long ago. The user's story ended abruptly, a mere 3 words left me chilling: I never returned. My heart raced. Was I in danger? My pulse thumped in my ears as I read the rest of the post, which mentioned an old house on the next street with similar occurrences. That was where I needed to go next. I threw on some clothes, determined to find out if there were records or people who could tell me about the house. When I stepped outside, a shiver ran down my spine. The neighborhood was eerily quiet, every sound amplified in the stillness. I walked quickly, my throat dry and nerves on edge. I could still hear whispers from last night, calling, beckoning. Just a few houses down, I reached the property. It was old and dilapidated, much like mine. The windows were clouded, and vines choked the front porch. As I approached, I felt the air grow colder. Taking a deep breath, I knocked on the front door, half hoping someone would answer, half terrified of what would greet me. Silence. I knocked again, harder this time, but still no answer. There was a strange energy around the house, as if it was holding its breath, just like me. I decided to peer inside through a dusty window. The inside was a mess, scattered with faded furniture and dust-coated antiques. Then, something moving caught my eye. I leaned closer, squinting. A shadow flitted across the room, too quick to be human. Panic surged. In a moment of impulse, I turned to leave, but then I heard it. A soft whisper carrying through the air like a secret: "Help me." My heart sank. I pulled my phone out to record. If this was happening again, I wanted to document it. I lifted it, ready to capture video, but instead caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the screen's reflection. My reflection was unchanged, but behind me, the shadow was there, clearer now. I didn't wait to see what it wanted. I turned and bolted down the street, my breath coming in sharp gasps. I had to get home, had to figure out what was really happening to me and the girl in the mirror. Suddenly, a cold hand brushed against my shoulder, and I froze. I turned slowly, chills racing through me. Someone was behind me, and I could already tell I wasn't alone anymore. I spun around, heart hammering in my chest. The figure stood there, shadowy but unmistakably human. I barely caught a glimpse of her face before she melted back into the darkness, the only evidence of her presence a chilling whisper that grazed my ear, "Help me." Panic gripped me. Thoughts raced through my mind. Who was she? Why did she keep calling for help? Behind me, the old house loomed, inviting and terrifying. I needed to choose, confront whatever was in there or escape back home. My instincts screamed for me to run, yet this pull I felt toward the girl urged me to stay. Taking a step back, I glanced over my shoulder. The street was empty. The silence was unsettling, and the cool air bore down on me, thick with tension. I couldn't shake the worry that my chance to understand this bizarre mystery was slipping away. Then, gathering my courage, I turned back toward the decaying house. As I approached again, the front door creaked open slightly, as if beckoning me inside. I hesitated, my mind racing with doubts. Should I go in alone? Yet every fiber of my being told me I needed to. Ignoring the anxiety fluttering in my stomach, I pushed the door wider and stepped inside. The darkness swallowed me whole. Dust particles floated in the faint light filtering through the grimy windows. I could barely see. I took a tentative step, the wooden floor creaking beneath my feet. I pulled out my phone to illuminate my way, the dim screen revealing old portraits on the wall. Their expressions seemed to scrutinize my every move. "Is anyone here?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence engulfed me again, but then I heard it, the softest echo of laughter from somewhere deeper within the house. I followed the sound, each step heavier than the last. The air grew colder with every inch I covered, and the whispers returned, swirling around me, tugging at my resolve. As I reached the far end of the main room, I spotted a staircase leading down into darkness. The laughter echoed again, now mixed with the girl's voice. "Help me." Nervously, I approached the staircase. The wood creaked ominously under my weight. Was this the place the girl wanted me to go? I took a breath, my mind racing with the risks. I had to know what was down there, even if my gut warned me I might find something I'd rather not face. I started to descend, each step sending chills through me. Then, without warning, the door I had entered slammed shut, the sound reverberating through the empty house. My breath caught. I was trapped. "Help me." The voice came again, clearer this time, echoing hauntingly in the narrow space. Just as I reached the bottom, a sudden gust of wind blew through, extinguishing the light from my phone. In an instant, I was plunged into complete darkness. My heart pounded, and I strained my ears for any sign of what was around me. I reached out into the void, praying not to touch something I couldn't identify. Then everything went silent, and I realized I was no longer alone. I felt a cold breath at my neck, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. A voice whispered directly in my ear, "You have to help me." What could I do? My fear turned to determination. I had to figure this out before it was too late. Before I lost my chance to save her. My heart raced as I stood frozen in the dark. The voice penetrated my thoughts, both ethereal and urgent. "You have to help me." The cold breath lingered, sending a shiver down my spine. I took a step back, desperate to put more distance between me and whatever was behind me. "Who are you?" I whispered into the darkness, my voice shaky but determined. There was no immediate reply, just the sound of my breathing echoing in the empty space. I reached for my phone, hoping to turn the light back on, but it was useless. The battery had died. A wave of panic coursed through me. I was enveloped in a darkness that felt alive, almost suffocating. Just when I thought I might lose my nerve, the girl's whisper returned, softer but filled with a strange urgency. Follow me, she urged, and I felt a pull, almost magnetic, directing me. I hesitated, torn between fear and an overwhelming need to understand. Gathering my strength, I took a cautious step forward, allowing the whisper to guide me. As I moved, the chill around me morphed into a gentle breeze, coaxing and unsettling at the same time. I walked slowly, using my hands to feel my way along the rough, damp wall. Suddenly, I stumbled over something solid, a pile of old, forgotten belongings. My heart raced as I crouched down, my hands brushing against papers and what felt like an antique toy. I picked up the small object, finding it was a porcelain doll. Its face was cracked, and one eye stared back at me, eerily intact. I dropped it in shock, as the laughter returned, more pronounced and echoing through the hallway. It felt mocking, as if the house itself was taunting me. "Stop!" I shouted into the darkness, anger and fear mixing in my chest. "What do you want from me?" The laughter faded, but the girl's voice persisted. "Please, help me." Each word seemed to wrap around me like a shroud, binding my conscience to her plight. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice firmer now. "I can help you. Just show me where to find you." That's when I heard something shift just beyond the reach of my outstretched hand. A creaking sound echoed through the space, followed by a soft thud. I squinted into the inky blackness, willing my eyes to adjust. Was there someone or something in front of me? Then I saw it, a faint glow emerging from deeper within the basement. Instinctively, I started moving toward it, the allure of the light almost intoxicating. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, as if they sensed my approach. Suddenly, another voice broke through, a harsh, gravelly tone that immediately sent a chill down my spine. "You shouldn't be here." My heart dropped. I wasn't alone anymore. The light flickered, illuminating the edge of a figure further down the hall, half hidden in shadow. I stood rooted to the spot, every survival instinct screaming at me to turn and flee. But I knew I couldn't abandon the girl, not now, not when I was so close. I took a shaky step forward. The figure shifted in the light. "You have to leave. Now." Something in his tone suggested he wasn't just a guardian of this house, but a real threat. With trembling hands, I gripped the wall, gauging my options. The girl's voice still echoed in my ears, pleading silently. Maybe if I asked the man about her, if I understood why he wanted me gone. I shot another quick glance at him, the fear growing into something heavier. "Who are you? What do you know about her?" He took a step closer, and that's when I realized, I was in way over my head. The figure's eyes glinted in the dim light, revealing a harsh face that seemed to blend into the shadows. He stepped forward again, his presence dominating the space. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. One wrong move and I could fall into darkness. "Listen," he said tightly, "if you care about your safety, turn back. You don't belong here." "Why? What happens if I stay?" My voice trembled, but I fought to keep it steady. I needed answers, and fear clawed at my insides, urging me to escape. He broke eye contact, glancing down the hallway, almost as if he were weighing his options. "You'll regret it. She's not what you think." "Then what is she?" The question slipped out before I could stifle it. The girl's voice flared in my mind, "Help me." I couldn't just walk away, something deep inside me knew I had to understand. The man's expression twisted, torn between concern and anger. "You're playing with forces you don't understand. She's south trapped here, this place isn't safe." He looked back toward the glow, his face hardening. "You think you can save her? It'll cost you." "Cost me what?" I stepped closer, driven by a mix of fear and determination. "You know something. Just tell me." Suddenly, the light flickered violently, plunging the basement into darkness. My pulse quickened, and I grasped at the wall for support. The whispers grew frantic, swirling around me like a tempest. I could hardly breathe. Run! His voice pierced the chaos. Get out! Before I could react, something cold brushed against my arm. I swiftly turned, thinking it was him, but there was no one, just an overwhelming sense of dread creeping closer. I stumbled backward, feeling a surge of panic clawing at my throat. What do you want from me? I yelled into the void, desperation spilling from my lips. The man's silhouette reappeared at the edge of the flickering light, a warning etched deep into his features. You shouldn't be here. This is your last chance. Before I could process his words, the girl's voice cried out again, stronger and more desperate than ever. Help me. I was caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I clutched at my chest, trying to steady my heart. What if whatever was down here wanted to take me, too? What if I was just another victim? Then I noticed the glow again. It pulsed gently but steadily, beckoning me forward. I was caught between two forces, unsure which one to trust. The man was right about one thing, this wasn't simply about me anymore. As I took a breath to calm my racing thoughts, I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. A dark shape darted through the shadows, closer to the girl's voice. My heart raced again as I sensed a shift in the air, like a storm was about to break. The man stepped back, his face a mask of anger and frustration. You think she wants to be saved? You don't know what's coming. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the air shifted once more, and I felt a presence cold, harsh, and overwhelming press down on me. A chill enveloped the room as a low growl echoed through the darkness, sending me scrambling away from both the man and the light. I turned to run, but the shadows twisted around me, an unseen force pulling me back toward the boy in the glowing haze. I was trapped, caught between a force urging me to flee and another promising answers. Then everything went black. I gasped as the darkness swallowed me whole. It felt suffocating, like the shadows were pulling me down into an abyss. My mind raced. Was I dreaming? Had I gone too far? Suddenly, a sharp light pierced the void, catching me off guard. I squinted, shielding my eyes as the glow intensified. It flickered, revealing a familiar shape. The girl stood before me, but there was something different about her. Help me, she pleaded again, although this time, her voice sounded distorted, like an echo trapped in a well. Where are you? I shouted, desperate to bridge this widening gap. I moved toward her, feeling the pull of the light. What do you need? She reached out, her hand trembling as she looked back towards the shadows. It's here. You have to go now. Panic flickered across her face, and I noticed her eyes darting nervously. Before I could answer, the growl returned, louder now, resonating through the air like a warning. I felt my heart pound in my chest, drowning out everything. I can't leave you. I cried, torn between fear and the urge to help her. Then, without warning, the shadows shifted rapidly, pooling and swirling as if alive. I stumbled back, trying to resist but feeling an invisible grip tighten around my ankles. Let me go. The girl's expression shifted from fear to something resembling determination. You need to trust me. Let it take you, it can't hurt you if you don't fight. Her words pierced through my confusion. The urgency hung in the air like a thick mist. I took a deep breath and let myself relax. As I did, the oppressive force around me eased, and I felt the shadows relent just a little. In that moment of surrender, something unexpected happened. The chilling growl morphed into a whimper. The darkness seemed to recede, and the girl stepped forward. I could see her more clearly now, her features were softer, like she was emerging from a nightmare. What are you? I whispered, still struggling to fathom what I was witnessing. I'm trapped, she admitted, her voice barely audible. But I can help you. As she spoke, the shadows began to reshape themselves, forming a mirror-like surface. My reflection stared back, and I noticed something startling. Behind me in the reflection was him, the man from before, lurking just out of sight. He looked furious and desperate all at once. "No. You want to take her," he shouted, lunging at me just as the surface rippled. The mirror cracked, and a force flung me backward. I clutched my head as the remnants of the shattered darkness pulled at me again. I could still hear the girl calling out, her voice echoing in my mind. "Finish it. You're stronger than you think." But before I could scream or reach towards her one last time, another surge of darkness rushed forward, enveloping everything. And then, silence. I was alone in a cold, empty room, gasping for air, unsure of where I was or what just happened. But one thing was clear: if I wanted answers, I'd have to face whatever was lurking in the recesses of my mind and the shadows around me. But how? I trembled. I knew that I needed to return to that basement before whatever it was could decide my fate for me. I shook off the remnants of that haunting encounter and forced myself to my feet. The cold air in the room seemed to seep into my bones, but I had no time to dwell on that. I had to find out what had happened, and more importantly, where the girl was. I stepped cautiously, scanning my surroundings. The walls were bare, and the only light came from a flickering bulb overhead. A door stood slightly ajar at the far end of the room. With each step toward it, I felt an electric tension in the air, making the hairs on my arms stand up. As I pushed the door open, a wave of musty air hit me. The hallway was dimly lit, and I stumbled forward, trying to make sense of my surroundings. I felt disoriented, as if the layout of the house had changed while I was gone. I took a deep breath and focused. If I could retrace my steps, maybe I could figure out what was real. I remembered the basement the girl had been there. I moved quickly down the hallway, almost tripping over an old rug as I turned into the living room. Then something caught my eye. On the table, there was a small, silver key. I picked it up, confused. "What is this?" I muttered to myself, turning it over. It looked like it could fit a lock, perhaps something hidden in the basement. But as I pocketed the key, a loud crash sounded from somewhere in the house. My heart raced. I wasn't alone. I peered around, straining to hear any hint of movement. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had followed me back from the darkness was still here, waiting. I took cautious steps toward the source of the noise, my pulse racing with every creak of the floorboards beneath me. The memory of the girl's face came to mind. "Finish it," she had said. What did that even mean? And how could I finish something I didn't understand? Suddenly, a shadow darted past the hallway entrance. My breath caught in my throat. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice felt hollow against the silent air. No response. I hesitated, but curiosity won out. I started down the hall toward where I had seen the shadow. The only sound was the pounding of my heart. Just as I reached the end, I saw it again, this time, clearer. A figure, almost human but shrouded in darkness, moved away from me, down a staircase leading to the basement. "Wait!" I shouted, but I heard only my voice echoing back at me. I felt a surge of fear mixed with determination. I couldn't let it get away. I sprinted after it, clutching the key tightly. The basement door loomed ahead, slightly ajar, with heavy darkness spilling out. I hesitated for just a moment before plunging through the doorway and down the stairs. Then everything went dark again. I stumbled down the basement stairs, feeling the cold air press around me like a vice. My heart thumped in my chest, quick and erratic. The darkness was thick here, almost tangible, but I had to find the girl, the one who had reached out for me, pleading for help. I needed to finish whatever this was. I could barely see as I squinted into the gloom, trying to catch another glimpse of the shadowy figure. Where did it go? I took a cautious step forward, feeling my way along the wall. My phone flickered to life, barely illuminating the dust motes swirling in the stale air. Then, I saw it. There, at the far end of the basement, was a mirror cracked and dusty, just like the one I had encountered before. The air felt charged now, electric with an unsettling energy. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, as I walked toward it. Is anyone there? My voice echoed, mixing with the oppressive silence surrounding me. I reached the mirror, and for a moment, I saw my reflection flicker unnaturally, warping in the dim light. Fear clutched at my gut. "Help me," came the familiar voice, softer this time, almost a whisper, yet so powerful it curled around me like fingers. I looked closer and saw her, a child, pale and small, standing in the murky depths of the mirror. Her eyes were desperate. "What do you need?" I asked, heart racing. "How can I help you?" "I'm trapped." "You have to let me out," she begged, her tiny hand reaching towards me through the glass. "Trust me." I felt the chill of the mirror draw me closer. I recalled the key in my pocket, the silver key that felt heavy with purpose. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was how I could help her. I reached for it, pulling the key from my pocket. It trembled in my grasp as I faced the mirror, unsure of how to use it. "What do I do?" I asked the girl. "Unlock the past. Find the truth," she whispered, and just like that, the shadows around me deepened, pulsing with an almost sinister energy. With my heart pounding, I knelt before the mirror, looking for a lock. I swept my fingers along the edges, and then, there it was, a small latch at the corner. Placing the key inside, I turned it slowly. A loud click resonated through the basement, echoing ominously. Suddenly, the mirror shook violently, and a cold wind rushed past me. The girl screamed, a high, frantic sound that pierced through the air, filled with both fear and anticipation. I stumbled back, eyes wide. Before I could comprehend what was happening, the mirror shattered, sending shards flying in every direction. I shielded my face with my arm, feeling a gust that lifted the dust and debris around me. When I dared to look up, the basement was transformed. The shadows gathered in one corner, swirling as if alive. I could see them forming a dark figure, a blend of anguish and rage. It was the man from before, his face distorted with desperation. "What have you done?" he yelled, but my focus was on the girl, who stood now outside the remnants of the mirror, looking frightened but free. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice stronger now. "Now, you must leave." But she looked back at the man, whose eyes were wide with fury, a whirlwind of chaos swirling behind him. "No!" he shouted, lunging toward me as the shadows rushed around him, closing in. I knew he wanted to keep her trapped, to keep this darkness alive, and I wouldn't let that happen. "Leave her alone!" I yelled back, the anger surging through me. I stepped forward, extending my hand toward the girl. "Come with me." But before she could move, the man reached out with shadowy hands, clenching his fingers around my wrist. I felt the chill wrap tighter, dragging me toward him, pulling me into the depths of darkness. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't just about her, it was about me, too. I realized I was part of the story, part of the battle for her freedom. My heart raced as I fought against the grip, forcing my other hand toward the girl. "Choose." The man boomed, his voice rumbling through the basement like thunder. "Choose darkness or light." And then, as if fueled by sheer will, I shouted, "I choose her." In doing so, I felt a surge of energy, a warmth that bloomed within me and raced through my veins. The shadows recoiled at the strength of my choice. The girl's face brightened, her small hand moving toward mine, but just as quickly, I felt the man's grip tighten again. "No!" he roared, and a violent wind erupted, swirling the darkness, making it howl around us. Then, everything erupted. A bright light flared before me, and from that light, I saw the girl now shining like a beacon. "Trust me," she called, glancing back at me with determination. I pushed against the shadow holding me and, with a primal scream, let every word of fear escape from my lips. The darkness gasped audibly, recoiling from my cry. The girl surged forward, a glowing embodiment of hope, and reached to take my hand. "Come with me," she urged, and as I grasped her tiny fingers, the warmth enveloped me. We were drawn upward towards the light. The shadows shrieked, twisting and writhing around us like smoke escaping a fire. And then it happened. The energy washed over me, a flood of light obliterating the darkness. I felt myself being pulled free, and just as fast as it started, I slammed into the floor of the basement alive, gasping, and shaking. I was back in the room. The mirror was gone, but a faint glow lingered in the air. I was alone, yet not completely. The house was still, unnervingly quiet now. I moved slowly, almost afraid to breathe too deeply lest I disturb the fragile peace that hung over me. But as I stood there, somewhere inside me, I felt the shadows lingering. And I realized though I was free, I had only faced part of the darkness. The house remained behind me, a silent guardian to its secrets. I didn't know if the girl was truly gone for good, or if there were more shadows waiting in the walls. Something about the house still felt unfinished, like a book with missing pages. I took one last glance around the basement before climbing the stairs, my heart heavy with the questions that still loomed. I was free, yes, but no part of me believed the story had ended. I had escaped. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever darkness had tied me to that house would always watch from the corners of my mind, waiting for my return.